Hello, my name is Tyler Radabaugh, and it's April 21st, 2023, and I'm here with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program. This interview is a part of the Tidewater Main Street Project. Who do I have the pleasure of speaking of today?
Hallie Jean Holmes.
Hi, Miss Hallie.
How you doing?
Doing well. So when and where were you born?
I was born in Richmond, Virginia, September the 25th, 1950.
And you were born in a hospital?
Yes, St. Philip's in Richmond.
St. Philip's. Alrighty, and what were your parents' names and their occupations?
My parents' name are Joshua Holmes, and at the time he was a waterman, and my mother, Willie Mary Holmes.
And what was her maiden name?
Carr, C-O-R-R.
Alrighty. And where were they from?
They were both from here in Middlesex. My father was from Locust Hill, Haley's Road section, and my mother was from Saluda.
There you go. And what were their home churches?
Their home church? My father's home church was Calvary Baptist Church, and my mother's home church was Antioch Baptist Church.
And which one did you grow up in?
Antioch.
And where did your family live?
My parents, we lived two places. we started out with my grandparents, and then when my mother and father purchased the property out on Route 17, then we moved there, and that was in 1955.
55, when you moved up to 17.
When we moved out to Route 17,
Alrighty, so y'all grew up in your grandparents' house. Which grandparents' house?
On my mother's side, Mr. Walter and Hallie Carr.
And where was their house located?
On now, which is Braxton Carr Road.
Alrighty. And then did your parents go to school?
As far as I know, yes, they did. I know my father, he always talked about my Ladies Bridge School, and we never actually saw the school, a picture of it, until very, very recently. And my mother went to Antioch School, and yeah, because I don't think she went, as far as I know, she didn't go to St. Clair Walker.
Okay. And then what grades do you think they completed up to?
Well, my father got up to the 7th grade.
And do you know why he left school?
He left school to go to work, to help his mama, because he was the oldest boy, to help bring money in for the rest of the siblings.
Yeah. And did he have any siblings that completed up to high school?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And then do you ever remember any of them talking about any teachers of My Ladies Bridge or Antioch School that they remember?
My Aunt Dorothy, I remember her talking about My Ladies Bridge School. And that was simply the fact because when she left here, you know, going north, went to New Jersey, she was all over the map in the United States, lived in more than one state. And she even lived in Canada and ended up in California.
Oh, wow.
And she moved back here to Virginia in 1984, drove her own self, her and her dog Mona Lisa, in a station wagon.
Wow. And then, let's see. So jumping back to you, where did you go to school at?
I went to school at Antioch Baptist School. I went to school at Shiloh. I went to Rappahannock Central Elementary and went to St. Clair Walker, then to Middlesex High School.
Quite a bit of school.
Yeah, just traveling around.
So who were some of your teachers at Antioch?
My teachers at Antioch were Mrs. Teresa Harris, Mrs. Clara Taylor.
What grades did they teach?
And Mrs. Thelma Ferguson. Mrs. Thelma Ferguson taught the 3rd grade. Mrs. Teresa Harris was first, second grade.
Mm-hmm.
And Mrs. Clara Taylor, she taught the higher grade. I would say like fourth, fifth grade.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then how many grades did you complete at Antioch?
I completed 3 years there
Okay.
because the school closed in 1959, 1960,
Mm-hmm. And then you went to Shiloh?
and then went to Shiloh.
Mm-hmm. And who were your teachers there?
Mrs. Carrie Peterson and Miss Daisy Foster.
Mm-hmm. And how many grades did you complete in Shiloh?
I completed the fourth and fifth grade at Shiloh.
Mm-hmm. And then you would have moved up to St. Clair Walker for the sixth?
No, then when Rappahannock Central opened, we came down the road to Rappahannock Central.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say that was like 62 or 63.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you would have done seventh grade?
I did the sixth grade at Rappahannock Central and the seventh grade. And then we went across the road to St. Clair Walker.
Mm-hmm. For the eighth grade?
For the eighth grade.
Okay. And then what were some of the teachers at Rappahannock Central that you remember?
I don't remember the teachers per se, but I do remember the principal, and his name was Mr. Branson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And was there any like extracurricular activities at the school? What do you remember about Rappahannock Central? Because it would have been close to brand new whenever you.
It was brand new.
Uh-huh.
It was really brand new.
Mm-hmm.
I know we would have recess,
Mm-hmm.
and we participated in rapping the maypole.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
At Rappahannock Central, or did you go up to St. Clair Walker for this May Day celebration?
We went across the road actually
Uh-huh.
to St. Clair Walker
Okay.
for rapping the maypole.
Mm-hmm. And then kind of thinking about how you got to school.
A school bus.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you remember any of your bus drivers?
One of my bus drivers was Mrs. Dorothy Lattimore.
And she graduated from St. Clair Walker.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was one of my bus drivers.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a lady, I want to say Miss Bessie Robinson,
Mm-hmm.
but she lived up the county.
Okay.
Yeah, what we would call up the county, up near Shiloh.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's see. So you attended St. Clair Walker for grades 8 through 12?
I was late because some
Oh.
people want to know why
Uh-huh.
I ended up at Middlesex High School was because of the way my birthday fell for me when I was ready to go to school. So I had to wait around another whole year, and that's where I got crossed up at. So I ended up at Middlesex High School
Right.
in September of 1969.
So what are some of your other family members that attended St. Clair Walker High School, and who and when?
My sister Julia Francis, she attended St. Clair Walker and graduated in 1959. My brother Josh Jr., my parents signed the papers for him to go in the Army at the age of 17.
Oh, wow.
He left home. They took him to Tappahannock. He caught the bus, went on in the Army, and he went, his first stop was Fort Hood, Texas. That's where he took his basic training at. And he has stayed in the Army for 24 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what year would it have been whenever he was 17?
I was about at that time, 1950, I want to say I was about 10 years old.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Because I know I was young, and when they took him to Tappahannock, I was just laid out on the back seat, just bawling, tears just rolling.
Oh, wow. And you just have the two siblings?
I have my brother Elmore. He graduated from St. Clair Walker. He also went in the Army.
Okay.
And he
What
only
year did he graduate?
63, I want to say 1963.
Okay.
Or 60, yeah.
Yeah. And then what did he do?
He went in the Army, and when he came out of the Army, he settled in Philadelphia, ended up being a professional chef. Yeah.
Nice. Did he ever have his own restaurant? Or was he just a chef in some restaurants up there?
He ended up being a professional chef at a private hospital in Pennsylvania there. Yeah.
And does that cover all your siblings?
Then my brother Woodrow, he graduated from St. Clair Walker in 1965.
Okay. And then what are some of your earliest memories of St. Clair Walker High School?
My earliest memory, and I thought it was so great, my sister graduating from St. Clair Walker, and some of the classmates, 3 girls, my sister Julia Francis, there was a girl named Julia Wake, and then Julia Gresham.
All graduated that year.
Yeah.
The 3 Julias.
Yeah, yeah.
And where was were you there for the graduation ceremony?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where was that held at?
At St. Clair Walker High School, in the gymnasium.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what were they wearing?
They were wearing their caps and gowns.
What color gown?
Blue.
Blue? Okay. Yeah.
Blue. Yeah.
What were some of the things that went on at the graduation ceremony, if you can remember?
Well, it was 2 services, but one was the baccalaureate. Yeah, they had that one day. Then the next thing was the actual graduation, where they would walk in and receive their diplomas and whatnot. Yeah.
And was the baccalaureate usually held at the school, or was it at a local church?
No, it was always held at St. Clair Walker.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So what were conversations about school like at home?
We were taught you were going to school to learn how to read and write. It's free.
Yeah.
You're going to school to learn, and that was really emphasized upon us. Because my parents, especially my father, because he had to leave school, to go to work.
It's okay, Miss Hallie. You're fine.
And working as an oysterman with his father for 25 cents. And he would bring it home, he said, give it to his mother to help with the others.
So family was really important then too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And why don't we talk about your father a little bit if you want? I mean, I'd love to talk about his career and everything that he did too.
He was a waterman. As long as I can remember, but I would hear him say from time to time He worked at the Naval Weapons Station,
Oh, really?
but that didn't last long because he felt like he had to be his own boss.
Uh-huh. Right.
So that's why he really went back to being a waterman.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he had his own boat.
Do you remember the boat's name?
The boat name, oh my God, because he sold the boat.
Oh.
Really? Because the boat was named after my mom.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It would have been Willie
Willie,
or Willie Mae?
Willie Mae, Willie Mary. Yeah.
Yeah.
The old Dead Rise boat.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And where did he set off at in the county?
Either over in Havana
Okay.
or down at Lockless Creek Marina then.
Okay.
Yeah, which is down where Memoirs is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then did your father serve in any capacity in any civic organizations in the county? I mean, was he active at the church?
The only organization he became a member of the Masons, the Masonics.
Okay.
And then he was a member of the NAACP.
Mm-hmm.
But his main thing was working the water.
Yeah.
His whole life. Summer, he took out fishing parties, or either he was a Manhattan fisherman,
Uh-huh.
and then he oyster in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
And that usually started in late October until basically March, because they didn't mess with oysters after March.
Right.
Right.
And did he have any help on the boat, or?
Oh yeah, he had. I remember one guy. His name was Mr. Thomas Braxton, and he was from Gloucester, and that's the only one I really remember because they were together for a long time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Working on the boat. Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about how your dad became sheriff?
Oh wow.
Yeah.
My dad got into law enforcement because of the oystering business was on a decline due to some kind of disease that was going on with the oysters.
Uh-huh.
And someone had asked him about being a night watchman for the town of Havana.
Okay. Now, what decade would have this been?
Oh, because my daddy was elected sheriff. That was 1970.
Okay.
And he was 65 when he got into law enforcement.
Wow.
And then Mr. Roland Hall asked Daddy to be his chief deputy. So that's how it all.
Yeah.
And then when Mr. Roland Hall resigned, they had to go before the circuit court and file paperwork. The judge, I think, was Mr. Carneal. And they had to end up having a special election. Yeah.
And how long was your dad serving as sheriff?
He served in that capacity basically from 1970 to 1983.
Wow. Do you have any memorable stories of him as sheriff that you'd like to share?
I remember people saying there was some kid, being mouthing one night, and he was trying to get away from Dad. And he didn't realize, I guess, how tall my dad was. And they said Dad stepped out one step with his long arms and hand and grabbed the young man, and he was just dangling in the air.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there was a fight. Something broke out, and that was down at Mr. Bill Garnett's place.
Oh, in Hartfield.
Yes, yes. And my dad went on down and
Broke it up.
broke it up, yeah, by himself.
Yep.
Yeah, everything was all done, over with, by the time Mr. What was his name? John Davis arrived, yeah.
Who was John Davis?
He was a sheriff here too,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So your dad he wasn't sheriff at the time, or was John the deputy, or?
Dad, when that happened, Dad was a deputy,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he just went on down, took it by himself.
Let's see. And then was your mom involved with any civic organizations or any organizations at the
Well,
church?
my mom was the church person. She didn't do too much participating with the NAACP, but she was always willing to contribute when they had the bake sales, you know, those type of, or sell dinners. But she was a member of the Order of the Eastern Star. That was her.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
that was her baby. Yeah, she enjoyed it.
Where did they meet at?
Well, believe it or not, they met at the old Antioch School.
Really?
Yes, they met at the old Antioch School. And then Mrs. Dorothy Lattimore and her husband donated the land to build a new Masonic Lodge where it is now on 33.
Right
And
outside of Saluda?
Right outside of Saluda, correct. And they had dinners, dances, and raised the money to help the Masonic brothers to build that building.
Which building?
The building that's there now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was a joint
Yeah,
fundraising effort between.
Well, it was really the Masonics, but the ladies always under the Masonic brothers. Yeah, so it was really a joint effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Masonic Lodge's number, or?
The Masonic Lodge number is Bethlehem Star Lodge number 249.
249.
And the Eastern Star chapter was Progressive Chapter 135.
Okay. And do you know about what time they built that building?
I can't remember exactly when. I can't remember exactly when, but I remember, you know, going through the different things that they had to raise the money to see that the building was put there.
And do you remember any of the big leaders of the Order of the Eastern Star or the Masonic Lodge?
At that, when my mother was involved with it, besides White, Carthorne's mother was there, Miss Gladys White, Mrs. Dorothy Lattimore, Mrs. Rosetta Jarvis, Mrs. Carrie Peterson, Miss Doris Foster. Oh my God, I wish I had brought.
No, you're doing great. You're really doing great.
Yeah, Miss Doris Foster. Those were the older members. Mrs. Easter Duster Holmes.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
And what about the Masonic Lodge?
The men, some of the men was my uncle, John Holmes, Mr. Reuben Amos Sr., Mr. Chandler, John Chandler, some of the older members, just by reading through some of the history of the lodge, was a Mr. Brooklyn J.B. Johnson. And then I think that's the only one I really remember, and because he went to Antioch Church as well. Yeah.
And what type of activities or functions did the Masonic
lodge,
or Eastern Star ladies do?
We had activities that would, the organization is based upon principles and in the Bible, and we did stuff that would encourage community growth or nursing home outreach type programs like that.
And helping some of the elderly?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All righty. So let's jump back to St. Clair Walker. Thank you for going off on that tangent with me. Which teachers impacted your experience most at St. Clair Walker? And then if you can remember what years you were in their classes, that would be great too.
He didn't teach me, but I remember him well. I was a teacher, Mr. Madison, had given my brother a problem, my brother Woodrow, an algebra problem or something, trigonometry or something, as a homework assignment. And he had to have an answer to that particular problem. And my brother worked on it. So he went across the road to Woodrow Taylor, which is Mr. Spencer Taylor's son.
Okay. And this is back over at Zion Branch.
This is on Zion Branch Road, correct. Woodrow Taylor looked at the problem, asked my brother, Woodrow, who gave you this problem? And of course my brother said, my teacher at school at St. Clair Walker. So he sat there, you know, his mind going through the problem, and then he took time and worked through the problem, you know, wrote it on paper and showed my brother the steps. And my brother took the problem back to school, and the teacher told my brother, he said to him, I know you didn't work this out all by yourself. He said, but I have to give you credit. You did come back with an answer to it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And Mr. Madison, he was some type of math teacher?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Mr. Charles I. Thurston, he was the principal. And of course, back then, the cafeteria and the food truck would come, you know, bringing the produce and stuff like that for the kitchen. And
how often would they come? How often would the food truck come?
Like once a week, I believe, that truck would come.
Yeah.
And one time the truck came, a bunch of the fellas, they go get in the back of the truck, and they took a box of apples and oranges. Shame to tell it, but we would walk around eating apples and oranges free of charge.
Oh my God.
It was so hilarious.
What year do you think that might have been?
And that was before my brother Woodrow graduated. So that had to be like 63.
Yeah.
64, yeah.
And do you remember some of the cafeteria ladies?
I remember Miss Anna Wake. I remember Miss Cox, Miss Florence Cox.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And
Mrs. Boyd. Mrs. Boyd.
what's Mrs. Boyd's first name?
Oh.
Or do you remember who she was married to?
Mrs. Boyd was Gloria Yarber's mother.
Okay.
What was her first name? Oh, God. But Mrs. Boyd and Mrs. Braxton, she was also a cafeteria worker.
Okay.
And they were close friends.
And what's Mrs. Braxton's first name?
Mary. I'm thinking Mary Braxton.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what types of food did you have during lunch?
Oh my God, we had home cooked meals.
So they were serving hot lunches?
Yeah, yeah, we had, food was basically made from scratch.
Was there anything that the ladies were known for cooking?
Oh my God, it was everything. Everything. The homemade rolls, biscuits, the peach cobblers, yeah, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had good food there. Really, really.
Good. And any other teachers that kind of stick out in your mind?
Mrs. Cameron.
Ruth?
Mrs. Ruth Cameron, yes. Mrs. Alma Jones was the home economics teacher.
Okay.
She was good, and she would take her classes from time to time and over to her house and would really show us how to set up a table and everything like that, how to set a table, yeah.
And where did she live?
On Route 17, going towards Glen in the southbound lane.
Okay, so would that have been across the county line?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. She would take a few of us over there, yeah.
And did any of the teachers that you recall make any home visits ever?
Not that I can remember. And it may have, but not that I can remember. Because that was one thing you didn't want your teacher coming to the house, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So you did everything, you could the right way so to keep the teacher from coming to your house. Because once the teacher came, you got it.
Right.
You had it coming to you. What did you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what were some of the ways the teachers disciplined that you can remember?
Can I shift back a little bit?
Yeah, let's shift back.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm going back to Antioch School. Mrs. Teresa Harris, I remember her. This student, Olive Betcamp, and myself, we were sitting all the way up front, and we had a habit talking, back and forth. And Mrs. Teresa Harris had said, I told y'all to stop talking. And we stopped talking for a little bit, then we go back at it again. And all of a sudden, we felt something. Mrs. Teresa Harris, I call it a tree limb, had reached from the back of the classroom, because that's where she had her desk, at the back of the class.
Oh, okay.
And that branch reached all the way up to the front, and it got Olivette and myself at the same time.
So she was able to hit you guys with the branch all the way from back at her desk. Wow.
It was so funny.
Yeah.
I call it a branch. It couldn't have been nothing else but a...
Yeah. Gosh.
It might have been a stitch, but able to hit us at the same time. It was so...
So y'all were on the completely other side of the room? Or were y'all...
Well,
you were in front?
Yeah, we were sitting in the front of the class, yeah.
Yeah.
And that school had 3 rooms to it. Yeah.
And then did they discipline y'all at St. Clair Walker?
The most discipline I can remember about St. Clair Walker, you were sent home for a day or two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
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 And I'm going with my brother Woodrow on this. My brother Woodrow had did something, and Mr. Thurston sent him home for 3 days.
Oh, wow.
But he was at home one day. Mr. Thurston came to the house. He told Mama, "Say, I come to get your son, because he ain't gonna let nothing sitting there at home
Yep.
and bring him back to school."
Gosh.
Yeah. And then one time there was a group of fellows, Woodrow, my brother Woodrow, Eddie Lattimore, and Danny Lee Davis.
Mm-hmm.
Philip Johnson was the one. He wasn't even in school, but Philip Johnson had a car, and he would stop by the school and pick everybody, pick the guys up and go for a ride. So one day, I think my brother had in his mind they was gonna get back before Mama got home from work.
Uh-huh. Where was she working at the time?
At the time, she was an oyster shucker
Where at?
at J.W. Ferguson Seafood up in Remley.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and when the school bus stopped, I said, "Oh my God!" I said, "Mama at home. What am I gonna do?" I was scared.
Uh-huh.
And I said, "Well, I gotta go in the house. I can't go anywhere else,
Right.
And my mom said, "Where's Woodrow?" Because I wasn't singing.
Uh-huh.
And I walked away. She said, "Didn't you hear me? I asked you where was your brother Woodrow." I did it again. Bad mistake. So when she asked me the third time about it, she said, "If you don't tell me, I'm going to whip your ass." Mm-hmm. And I said, look to myself, I'm not taking a beating from nobody else. I had to give him up. I had to give it up. And so she went to the telephone and called the state police trooper named Mr. Johnson and told Mr. Johnson what had happened. And she said, they hadn't really did anything but stopped the car and scared the crap out of him.
Oh, man.
And which he did. And
Where was the state police office at, or where was he at?
I can't. Because I know it wasn't an office here.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't a state police office here. But by Daddy being in law enforcement and stuff, that's how, yeah.
That's how y'all had the connection to call
Yeah.
him. So what year do you think that would have been?
I can't remember the exact year.
Would have been while you were at St. Clair Walker?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
And you were there from?
I was basically there because 1969, I'm counting backwards, 68, 67, 66 or so,
Okay.
65, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. And how were the teachers respected in the community? I mean...
Oh, the teachers were very well respected, very well respected.
Yeah. And did most of them attend church in the community as well?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
yes. Yeah, there was a time frame here in Middlesex that all our pastors, preachers lived here, our teachers lived here. There was that economic base that was here. That was a help,
Yeah.
you know.
What sorts of role models or mentors did you have in school? And this could include some of the older kids too.
I often admired Miss Easter Holmes, not because she was a relative, but when down through the years, when the schools totally integrated, I didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to go to Middlesex.
Right.
Why do we have to do this? Why? And she came to my parents' house, and we sat down and talked and talked and talked, and she convinced me going back to school.
What was that conversation like? Were you all involved? Your parents and siblings too?
No, see, I'm the youngest of six.
Youngest, right.
Yeah, I'm the youngest of 6 kids. And she just basically, but just heart-to-heart talk. Yeah, about the value and the importance of going back to school, getting your diploma.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you would have been up to 11th grade. You were just a junior then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was your experience and your family's experience with integration?
They wasn't really against it, because they did ask me, did I want to go when the 13 went.
During the freedom of choice in 64.
Yeah. And I said, no. I didn't want any part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they didn't make me, so I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And how many students left in between 64 and 69?
The only students that I remember leaving during that time span until 69 was Hallie Jean Jr.
Was he close to your age?
No, he's older than I am. Norman Robinson was one of those. He was older than I am. And the girl, I believe, was Linda Scott. She's a little older than I am. Yeah. And Violet Hodges, in conversation with her the other day, and I didn't realize she was that young. She was 13 years old, she said, back then.
Do you know some of the reasons why the students or families would make the choice to switch over to go to Middlesex High School?
Supposedly for better education. They had the bathrooms, running water, and stuff like that. Basically, that's.
Yeah. Were there bathrooms at St. Clair Walker?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Just better facilities over in Florida. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What memories from class, lessons, celebrations, or examinations stick out to you?
Oh, that's a big.
Yeah.
I had a classmate. Oh my God! I was sitting in the back, and she was sitting up front. And I don't care what class, she was up front. I was sitting in the back, or sometimes halfway. Some kind of way, she would take her eyelids and turn them inside out, and do something with her lips, and turn around and look at me, and I would just bust right out in class. And bust right out. Or I seen...
Who was that classmate? Do you remember?
Yeah, Jenny. Janet Lee Akron. Yeah. Janet Lee Akron, yeah.
Anything else?
Test times. You will see one or two, you know, cheating going on, but overall, we really had nothing to complain about at St. Clair Walker. We really didn't. Since this oral history has been conducted this time and sitting out there talking, we have people that graduated from St. Clair Walker with PhDs, doctorate degrees. They had really done well under the guidance and the teachers of St. Clair Walker. And we really, at the time, we didn't even think about it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember Professor Walker at all? I mean, he was a little bit before your time. He passed in
Yeah, I remember. I went to the funeral. Yeah, I remember.
Was that held at, where was that?
That was held at St. Clair Walker in the gymnasium.
Do you know about how many people showed up for the funeral?
The gymnasium was packed.
I'm sure.
It was packed. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember anything about him as a person? Any stories that you've heard over the years?
I don't personally remember him as a person, but it was someone from Gloucester said they would come to Professor Walker science class or something under him, under Professor Walker.
Was that something he was doing, like a night school, or?
I don't remember a night school. And he may have, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
But maybe some of the older ones remember him doing night classes. Yeah.
So describe your experiences with May Day and other special events at the school.
Oh, you come out with your hair done, you know, fixed up, and everything was matching. You know, you had your white blouses or white dresses, and of course the patent leather shoes and the white socks. You were all dialed up, and the young fellas, they had their outfits on as well. Yeah.
What types of activities happened at May Day?
The main thing was rapping that pole. And we would practice for it to make sure we had it right. Yeah, that was, I think that was the biggest, one of the biggest things was the May Day. Yeah.
And how many people showed up there? Was it wasn't just St. Clair Walker that showed up?
Oh, it was quite a few. It was quite a few. Yeah.
And were there any athletic events?
I don't remember really athletic events, particularly with May Day. I remember, the basketball teams, you know, the guys playing basketball or softball, the girls playing baseball, you know, softball, those types of things.
And that was throughout your time at St. Clair Walker?
Yeah, yeah.
And where was the baseball field near the school?
Yes, yeah. There was when you come out the side door, the gymnasium door, and off to your left in the back. That's where the school buses are parking now. Yeah, back in that area. Yeah.
Were there any stands or anything, or any dugouts?
I don't remember a dugout per se. I really don't.
Yeah.
Or particularly gym class, sometimes we would have to run that whole field, going around the edge of the woods.
Like as a warm-up?
Like a track meet or something,
Okay. Yeah. Was there any outdoor basketball court, or was it just in the gym?
It was just in the gym, as far as I can remember, of attending St. Clair Walker. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember any other special events at the school? Maybe was there a Black History program?
I don't remember having a Black History program, but Ms. Easter Dustin Holmes would always incorporate it through the history classes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any local stories of history that she would tell that you remember?
She would tell us about people like Marian Anderson, Booker T. Washington, and those people. Yeah.
Did she ever mention anything about Irene Morgan?
Yes, she did. Yeah, she did. And I think what helped us, my family personally too, was the fact that my parents were able to purchase the Ebony magazines, the Jet magazines, and the Journal and Guide that would come out of Baltimore, Maryland. And the only time we could get it was the fact that we went to Richmond maybe on a Saturday, and there would be people on the corner selling those papers, the Journal and Guide. Yeah. And we had TV. Yeah.
How many channels did you have?
The TV, we had Channel 3, Channel 6, Channel 12. And of course the TV would automatically cut off at 11 o'clock at night. Yeah, TV go. All you seen was snow. Well, time to go to bed now, you know. Yeah.
Do you remember any assemblies or extracurricular activities throughout school?
Talent shows they would have at the school. You know, the high school students. We would have, what would they call it? Showing the young ladies how to dress up for a formal affair. And have the young men dressed up for prom, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And where was prom held at?
In the gym.
In the gym. Was it junior, senior prom, or just for the seniors?
Junior, senior proms.
Do you remember any fun prom stories?
Oh my God! It would take a whole bunch of us together to
unlock all
to unlock it. Yeah.
Was there like a DJ there, or?
Yes. I remember that. Yeah.
Do you remember their name or anything?
Nah. Nah.
Yeah.
Now the only DJ I remember was Mr. Jack Holmes that used to come up to the Black American Legion building at Cook's Corner.
Cook's Corner.
And at the time they were only charging each person 25 cents to get in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What were some of your biggest accomplishments in and out of school? And did you experience any tough times?
My biggest accomplishment? Wow. My biggest accomplishment, my biggest accomplishment, and I feel like I had milestone steps by being here locally all my life. I get my high school diploma. That was one I'm just multitude of things, a multitude of different jobs that I have done over the years to have your own money.
Yeah.
And can I go to that part of it? We were always taught to work, of course. If you're going to have money, you're going to work. It's not going to be given to you. So my actual first job was happening around my grandparents' house. My grandparents had a small farm. We had our own chickens. We had our own pork.
This is the
beef,
Coors?
Horses, yeah.
This is the Coors? Your mom's parents?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, I never knew my grandparents on my father's side. Okay. Yeah. Walking up and down the field, throwing the fertilizer on the land by hand.
Do you remember some of the crops that you used to grow there?
Corn and wheat. Corn and wheat.
How would you sell it?
Somebody would come and cut it down. Yeah.
Yeah.
My grandfather had a barn, and they would also take the grain to a mill and ground for flour. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the eggs, we laid so many eggs. We would take the eggs to, it wasn't about a market, Park Place grocery store used to be, yeah, that's what it was. And we would exchange eggs for items. Yeah. And then the Lord My factory. We were in the field picking the beans, string beans, peeling tomatoes, picking tomatoes for the canning factory. And back then, Lord My was canning for Campbell Soup Company. And my mother and grandmother were working at the factory back then. And then, job-wise, I shucked oysters for a while. And there was a lady there, Mrs. Schreiner Hodges, who I always emphasized to the younger people, you all don't have to stay here. You all don't have to do this for the rest of your life. This is nasty, dirty work. And it was. And my first job after that was at Tidewater Memorial Hospital in Tappahannock. And that was in the summer, about June or July, when I went to work there.
What year?
1971,
Okay.
when I went to work there.
So you did the oyster shucking right out of high school?
Yeah.
Where was that at?
At J.W. Ferguson's at Remlett. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because my grandmother had worked there, my sister, my mother, you know, it was a community of people. Even they ladies would come over from King and Queen and work at this oyster house. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just like one big family. And but I worked at Tidewater Memorial for 7 years. Yeah, as a nurse's aide. And I had to take a course for it, of course. And then, but out of those 7 years, Worked in the intensive care. Out of 4 years.
Uh-huh.
And I also had opportunities to work in the labor and delivery room.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was neat too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
And then why'd you leave the hospital?
I got tired of the ride.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it was a couple of times it just felt like if something happened, you know, you're driving that distance at night by yourself, and someone I know was following me. So by my brother working at the sewing factory then in Tappahannock, I told him about it. And I don't know what happened, but it wasn't too long after that it stopped. And that was, and then I got a job at the nursing home here in Saluda. And I worked there. Then I did that for a while. Then I went into home health nursing, you know, going to different homes, elderly people, yeah.
Did you mainly work in the county as a home health nurse?
Yeah, yeah, I worked right here in the county.
Yep.
I even cooked at a restaurant for a while.
Where at?
Virginia restaurant.
Virginia Street?
No, not Virginia Street. It was Virginia, the name of it was Virginia Restaurant. Right out there on 17 across from Hardee's.
Oh, I'm not familiar with that restaurant.
Oh no, they have a red brick building. That's a medical thing there now.
Okay, yeah.
Well, that building there, the next, before you get to the medical building there.
Yeah, close to the county line across from the lumber.
Yeah. Not across the line, but it's,
Close.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, who was Virginia Restaurant owned by?
Mr. When I went there, Mr. Brewster, I think that was his last name.
It wasn't black owned, was it?
No, it was white owned. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was the cook. Lamitha Reed was my dishwasher. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you were doing the cooking while you were doing home health too?
The cooking, I was cooking first, and then the home health,
Yeah. And then how long did you do home health for?
I did home health until I would say until 1980. I think it was 1980. Then I said, well, let me try something else.
Yeah.
And ended up working in retail, working for Murphy's Mart.
Okay.
And believe it or not, I had to go all the way to Richmond to training to learn how to run a cash register.
Oh, really?
Cashier class, they call it. That's basically what it was, to be a cashier. And then I was working for Murphy's Mart for until 1986.
Okay.
Because in between that, while I was doing that, cashiering at Murphy's Mart, I had put in for a job at the jail. And I didn't even give it a second thought. I said, I get it. If I don't, I don't, you know.
Right.
So anyway, I was at Murphy's Mart for 6 years. And my mom called me in Gloucester, because I had moved to Gloucester then.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I lived in Gloucester for about 2 years.
Where at in Gloucester?
Not very far from Roswell, down on that road.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then my mom called me. She said, Mr. West said to give him a call. He was the jail superintendent at the time, Mr. Richard West. I said, well, what does he want? She said, I don't know. All he asked me was to get in touch with you and asked me to tell you to call him. And so I did. And he said, do you want a job? I said, yeah, I want a job. Closer. So that was in 1986. And he said, well, what day can you start? And right off the top of my head, I said April the 1st, not even thinking. It was April Fool's Day.
Yep. Oh my gosh.
I started April the 1st, 1986. I will never forget this.
Wow.
So, and I ended up moving back to Middlesex. Because then the job right at the jail, and I'm less than 3 minutes driving time.
Right.
So that's why I said, oh no, God. I didn't think I was going to even stay there a year.
Really?
Yeah. I said, this is not for me. But all at the same time, my dad said, remember now, when you go down there, you're going to be working with all kinds of people. And I said, yeah. And he said, but one thing for sure, watch your tongue. Watch that pink thing in your mouth. He said, watch it. So I was very observant of what I said and how I said it from my father's instructions. And ended up staying. I retired in 2010.
Wow.
So I was there 24 years.
And what role were you there?
Well, I started out as just a regular correctional officer, and we had to go to school for it, training. And it was a 3-week training, and we had to go to Richmond for that, at Richmond City Jail for the training. And yeah. And at the time, I had never really had no real ambition about touching a firearm. That was the furthest thing from my mind. And I stayed away from it. And I avoided going to the firearms class as long as I could until it really dawned on me that you can't do this job according to the standards unless you have this firearm training. So I ended up doing the firearm training because the ideal of a gun, I just didn't like it.
Yeah.
So I made it through that, did fine, and doing the different in-service classes, you know, going to Richmond or going to Hampton or going to Norfolk, yeah. And when I was doing the in-service training classes, keeping up, I had to be on the road, either direction, no later than 5:30 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because when I came out to 17 at the corner of, what's the name of the road there? I always call it Emmanuel Road.
Town Bridge.
Town Bridge, right. Okay. Mr. Theodore Scott was still employed at the shipyard. And I knew that I was on time when I got to that location, to his house, and looked over. They were loading up. I say, I am in good shape this morning. Yeah. And there were a few times when I came out to 17 and looked over, and they were gone. I said, oh no, the traffic going across Yorktown Bridge, getting into Newport News or Hampton. I said, I am done. I am just totally done.
Wow.
So I made sure that I was ahead, 5:30.
Yeah.
Yeah, to get to the classes and stuff on time. It was a real eye-opener, those 24 years there. When I really started there, society was a whole different thing than it is now. When I went working there, there were no women. There were no female inmates, let me put it that way. And I was able to be at home a few occasions. If they didn't have any women, well, you can stay at home but be on standby. And still was able to get paid. And then I started noticing it was bringing more females. And then I saw a breakdown that fathers and sons, then there were mothers and daughters that were coming to jail. And maybe I'm going off on a tangent.
No, it's fine.
But that was when I saw firsthand what some families were going through. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my organizations that I became involved with was one I said I would never, ever be involved with it. But I got carrying my mother around when she got so she couldn't, really drive. Was the Order of the Eastern Star, because she was a worthy matron, and of course, like I said, I was carrying her around. I said, I would never, ever white year around. No, I'm not gonna do it. And lo and behold, I ended up joining that organization, and I'm still a member of it. Yeah.
What's the membership like today?
Now, through here, our chapter had to end up merging with another chapter over in New Kent and the Williamsburg area. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the membership is good.
Good.
Yeah.
And going back to your mom just real quick, I want to cover all the occupations that you've known her to have throughout the years.
The occupation that I've known that my mother had, she used to be a housekeeper for the Baffert family.
Okay, in Saluda?
Yeah. Yeah, she was a housekeeper for the Baffert family. And then she worked at the Lord Mount Cannon factory. Then she went to shucking oysters at Mr. Buster Ferguson. His name, I would say Mr. J.W. Ferguson. Yeah. And then from there, she ended up getting a cook at the jail.
Okay.
And she stayed there until she retired from that.
Yeah.
And you talk about food.
Yeah.
She cooked stuff from scratch.
Uh-huh.
Everything,
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Yeah.
And it was good.
Yeah. So let's talk about Cook's Corner.
Okay.
What's your earliest memories of Cook's Corner or hearing about Cook's Corner?
Oh, that was the place to be.
Yeah.
If you didn't get to Cook's Corner, you won't go anywhere. And it was so vibrant.
Uh-huh.
Everybody. We were at Miss Frances Jackson place, over at Mr. and Lynn Davis place, you know.
Just back and forth at the
Back
corner.
and forth. But when my dad took me, and I was the youngest. Well, you can go to Miss Frances Jackson, but don't you go nowhere else. Okay. So, watching the tail lights of the car going back up 33, and when the tail lights got out of sight, across the road we had business to Mr. Lynn Davis' place.
And so was Miss Frances Jackson like a place for younger folk, and it was
It was a mixture.
just a different crowd than Lynn Davis?
Yes, yeah.
So
It was a different
like
crowd.
an older crew at Lynn Davis?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah. What types of things do you remember Miss Frances Jackson having in the store?
Oh, Miss Frances, it was really a place you could go in and sit down and eat. I had the little piccolos on the tables. Yeah, it's...
Was she known for anything in particular?
Other than the food and the drinks,
Uh-huh.
you know,
Did she sell any alcohol there too?
I don't remember alcohol being sold there. And I think that's what,
That's what
going
Lynn
over
Davis.
to Lynn Davis,
Okay.
you buying your beer over at Lynn Davis, yeah.
And then, what do you remember about Miss Frances Jackson as a person?
Well, she was a sweetheart.
Uh-huh.
She was a nice lady. Yeah, I remember her more than I don't remember her husband.
Uh-huh.
But Miss Frances Jackson was a sweetheart. Yeah, real nice lady.
And over at Lynn Davis's, what all did his business have?
Oh, you name it.
Yeah.
The beer, it was more space. It served food, but it had tables in there. It also had the little, piccolos in there. Yeah.
Okay. And
And
then,
of course the beer, and you had an older crowd. Yeah.
yeah. And did they have gas over at Lynn Davis's?
Now, I don't remember the gas station part of it. When I started going out, I remember the service station part. The building was still there,
Okay.
but I don't remember buying gas there at all.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, my brother that went in the service, Josh Jr., Lynn Harris, Marsha Johnson, my brother Woodrow, and it was somebody else. They had gone inside, and somebody needed to get out due to where they were parked at. So they went and asked the person about moving their car, and the person blew them off, you know. So when the guy came outside, those fellas in the prime of their life had picked the car up and moved it.
Oh my goodness. How was his reaction?
The guy couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Yeah.
He couldn't believe it. He just couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Well, I say those guys back then, you know, they were in the prime of their life.
And this was back in the earlier part of the 60s?
This was, my brother was in the army. He was in the army and came home on leave.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe the later part of the 60s?
I was thinking in the later part of the 60s.
Okay.
Because there was even the ball diamond behind what is now Fast Eddie's. It was a ball diamond over in that section. Yeah.
The Cox family field?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then did Francis Jackson and the Davises live in their stores at the corner?
I remember Mr. Lynn Davis in his place and Mrs. Francis Jackson.
So they both did?
Yeah, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
And then
because it was always there when you went there, you
Right.
know. Yeah, and Mr. Yeah, they did have a living space in the back of each store. Yeah, place. Yeah.
yeah. And do you remember Martha Wake Powell's store?
Now I remember by other people talking about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it wasn't in business in the 60s.
I don't remember it being in the, and it may have, but it just doesn't click. But I remember my dad and mother and other people in the community talking about Miss Martha Ann Wake's place there. Yeah.
Yeah. And what can you tell me about Herman's?
Oh, now you want to get well, getting to Herman Wakes was one thing. See, that's why we would watch the tail lights of the cars going back up 33. So we would leave from Miss Francis Jackson's place, go to Mr. Lynn Davis' place to catch a ride down to Herman Wakes. And then when that didn't work out, we would get in the road and walk down to Mr. Herman Wakes' place. And oh my God, it was just, they had live bands, dancing.
Do you remember any of the band names?
The band that I remember the most was a band that was coming from Newport News in the Hampton area, was the Jammin' Jammers.
The Jammin' Jammers.
Yes, and they were good.
Yeah.
They were good. Then there was a band after them, the Donatones.
From Matthews.
From Matthews, correct. And there was, I'm trying to think, was there another band? Now that's when I need my girlfriend from Gloucester. Yeah, even though she was from Middlesex, she married and moved to Gloucester. Yeah.
What do you remember about Herman as a person and how he ran the juke joint?
Oh, well, I ain't gonna say he ran the juke joint.
Okay.
You know, the dance hall. I would put that acclamation on his wife, Miss Anna Wake. Because without any marking on your hand or wrist, you were not coming in there unless you paid. And she must really had a keen sense of remembering face and eyes. If you didn't pay, you was not coming in there.
Right.
Straight up.
Did they just take money at the door?
Just took money at the door. She was at the door religiously.
How much would they charge, you remember?
I remember the highest I can ever remember was paying $2 or so.
Okay.
To get in. And they served sandwiches and soft drinks. But I never saw beer being sold there on the inside.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And cars would be parked everywhere, everywhere. Yeah. They always had a crowd there.
And then was that auto shop next door open at that time?
Now, when I was going to Herman Wake's, it was closed.
Okay.
It wasn't operating then. even though there were a beautician named Miss Doris Foster that had one part of that building. She was a hairdresser there for a while until she got situated at her house.
Okay.
Did she go to her house? Or did she work in Mr. Samuel Key barber shop as well?
Down near Burrell's Marina Road, outside of Urbana.
Samuel Key barber shop was on Old Virginia Street, next door to Bethpage Campground.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And his wife, Drusilla, was a hairdresser.
Did they run this business out there?
They had a business there, correct.
And do you remember if Miss Doris Foster was running the beauty shop out whenever the auto shop was still running, or had the auto shop closed next to Herman's?
The auto shop, where Doris was there after it closed.
Okay.
For a while. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you remember Mr. LeVar's place?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And what would he do there?
He would repair cars, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember his wife, she was a nice lady, and so was he. Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you remember about Dr. Tony?
Oh, my. For me, I thought it was the neatest thing, a black doctor, period. Yeah. And he took care of his patients. He had black nurses. He had a black driver.
Do you know any of the nurses' names?
The one I remember, the lady name is Lucia Watkins. Of course, she's now deceased, been deceased for a while. And the driver that I remember was a guy named Leonard Burrow. Yeah, he was the driver for Dr. Tony.
What would the driver be responsible for? Did he have an ambulance, or?
No, he didn't have an ambulance, but he would drive Dr. Tony around and whatnot from time to time. Yeah.
Yeah. And then his office was right next door to the LeVar's.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Do you remember anything about Dr. Tony as a person that you could speak on?
He was a good doctor.
Yeah.
And that's all I can say, that he was a good doctor. He was a good person. And apparently he was a smart person. And the fact that owned property down on Beverly Beach.
Yeah. Down in Topping.
Yeah, down at Toppings, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see, going down the road here. Did you ever hear anything about Butler Harris or Lucy Harris, his wife?
Butler Harris attended Antioch Baptist Church.
Okay.
Yeah. Him and his wife Lucy. Yeah.
And do you know anything about any of his businesses at Cook's Corner?
I didn't personally know aware of any of his businesses, but by listening to older people talking about the theater, the ballpark, Tasty Freeze, and the newspaper he had.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess he was definitely respected in the community.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
he was involved with the church. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a copy of that paper. I don't have the original, but one year it was, and I don't know how it came in. Somebody printed off a copy for me in I think the year was 1946.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you remember anything about his baseball diamond?
Now that escapes me. I don't remember The baseball diamond that you could go down by Miss Martha and Wick Place and go back. They said it was a ball diamond back there, but I don't remember it. Yeah.
Do you know anything about the baseball teams that would have been playing in the area?
The baseball team that I remember was over behind Facettes, and there was Theodore Williams. There was Mr. Monroe Jarvis, Pick Jarvis. There was Arthur Macon. And I believe there was a Frazier. There was Marshall Johnson.
Do you know what some of the team names would have been?
No, I can't remember any of the team names.
Yeah.
I'm sorry when it comes to that. Yeah.
And then, let's see here. And what do you remember about other Cook's Corner establishments and anything else going on there?
I remember Cook's Corner to the point that there were no white establishments there.
Yeah.
There were none that I could remember. And there was barbers. I remember a barber shop in the later years. There was a guy there that was a barber. His name was Dave Roy. There was a barber there on Cook's Corner area.
Is that by the car wash?
No, this barber shop. When you're heading towards the bank, and the little telephone place thing there. The barber shop was on that side of the road.
Kind of near where the telephone and bank are.
Yeah, because
Building's not standing?
nah.
Yeah. And what years do you think he was active? Or what decade?
And my brother, again, Josh Jr., he was stationed in North Carolina. And my brother retired from the Army, like in 84, 85. So I'm thinking during the 70s.
Okay.
Because I would go to Dave Roy and get him to cut my hair from time to time.
And then kind of jumping back to St. Clair Walker, do you remember where some of the teachers were staying in and around Cook's Corner?
I remember teachers staying at the house Mr. Thurston had there. I remember teachers staying there. I remember...
Where was that located?
The road wasn't even named then, but since then, Union Park.
Union Park Lane.
Yeah, Union Park Lane, right there on 33, going down. And I don't know, that would be 33 East?
Yeah.
Yeah, 33 East side, yeah.
And then where else would the teachers have been staying?
Teachers would have been staying with Mrs. Alma Cunningham, and her house is on the right on Urbana Road. Yeah. Across the street from Mr. and Mrs. Herman at Anna Wick's place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of catty corner to Diane and Emery Johnson.
Right, right.
Yeah. Just those two places for the teachers?
That I can remember. But if you talk with some of the older ladies in Middlesex, they can remember teacher's thing, you know, other places in the county.
Yeah.
But that's my recollection.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, is there anything else that you wish to share? Anything that kind of sticks out in your mind about anything?
And I am.
Oh, and we forgot to mention Dr. Polson.
Oh yes, he was the dentist. Correct, correct.
And
Correct.
what do you remember about him? Was he your dentist?
Yeah, he was my dentist. Yes, he was.
Yep.
Yes. A very knowledgeable person.
Mm-hmm.
And his wife was a school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
But she never taught me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything you can remember about his practice or?
He was a good dentist. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
he was really a good dentist, and you felt at ease when you went there.
Mm-hmm.
You know you were going to get good care.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember his dental hygienist person that was in the office then, and her name was Macy Briggs.
Uh-huh.
Lincoln. 'Cause, yeah, she married a Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she was there until it closed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you can remember about St. Clair Walker or Cook's Corner?
I just could not accept the fact that they had to close St. Clair Walker School
Yeah.
at that time.
Did they have one big graduation in '69? What was that like, the last graduation?
The last class was 1969, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And people was crying.
Mm-hmm.
Those that knew that they had to go up to Middlesex High School.
Mm-hmm.
I know I did. I just boo-hooed.
Yeah.
And we cleaned out, made sure that the lockers and all were cleaned out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a trying time.
Mm-hmm.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I will say this about St. Clair Walker High School. Their teachers, the principals, ought to be very proud
Mm-hmm.
of what they had helped to produce out of St. Clair Walker. Because we had a music there. Oh God, the students would go off to other schools and participate in speech. I would say, but I know there's another word for that.
Oratory.
Yes, science, math, sports such as baseball and basketball. We didn't have football.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
And where did your family? Did you guys ever go to the theater?
we went to a theater in Havana. Yeah, the movie theater. Of course, back then, you know, we thought we had the bad seats in the movie theater because the black people were upstairs in the balcony and the white people were downstairs. And we were just dropping stuff.
Yeah.
And come find out in the long run, we had the best seats in the theater. And I remember my sister telling me about a black couple that was there watching the movie. And I knew the couple, but see, she's older than I am, but she remembered this couple, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, Alec Johnson. and on the screen it showed it's snowing. And my sister tells me that Mr. Johnson tells his wife, "Come on, we have to leave here because it's snowing outside."
Oh my gosh.
I thought that, I still think it's hilarious.
Yeah. Did y'all ever go to the drive-in too?
Oh, yes, at Warner. Yes, we did. Yes, carloads.
Yep.
Yeah, off at Warner. Remember that
And
very well.
that was integrated there, or was there?
As far as I know, it was integrated. Yeah, you was in your car. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't notice any separation there, segregation there. I really didn't. Yeah. And going to Urbana was a treat. And then going to West Point was another treat. Going to Richmond, going to the train station to pick somebody up or whatnot. Yeah. All of that was a real treat back to us back then. We thought we were going somewhere.
Right.
And we did. We did. I remember going to the big Sears in Richmond. That was up on Broad Street. Yeah. So those things back then, you know, were, I would say, luxuries to us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when we didn't have electricity at my grandparents'.
When did they get electricity put in?
Nah, I remember when we didn't have a telephone.
Oh, a telephone.
Yeah. Because I know when we had to do laundry, we had a Mingo washing machine. So I remember we had to plug it up for the motor to run. That's, yeah. We had wood stoves. I remember oil lamps.
Oh, yeah.
And we would have to, in order to use a phone, we would have to leave off a den. We would say behind the pines. And come out to Mr. Lewis Jones' store or Mr. Spencer Taylor house to use a phone.
Those were the closest phones?
Those were the closest phones we had. Yeah.
All righty.
Anything else I can answer?
Oh, we could go on all day, I'm sure of it. But I think this is everything on the list here. We got pretty much everything worked out, and you did a great job.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you, Miss.
I hope I was of some help.
No, of course you are. You're a wealth of knowledge.